So awesome to be here. Thank you guys all for coming. I really hope that today I want you to think of this as such a great venue for this, because it can be hard to talk about some of these things. So today I am going to talk about sex after cancer and rekindling your sexuality and your relationships. And so throughout my talk, feel free to stop me, ask me any questions. So today, really what my goal is, I hope you guys all leave here today with, first and foremost, an understanding of how cancer and its treatment, primarily its treatment, affects sexuality, particularly long term. It's one of the biggest things we don't talk about. We don't talk about sex nearly enough anyways, let alone particularly in the context of health. I also want you guys to leave here with an appreciation of just how prevalent some of these concerns are. Because in some way or another, you or your partners are going to be affected by this in some way. And I'll talk about all the different ways. So, I'm also going to talk about a lot of concrete strategies. We're going to do some exercises. I'm going to talk to you guys about things. That's also particularly where if you have questions, ask away. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my research, really more as an opportunity to tell you about what's out there. There are a lot of supportive interventions out there, and this is an example. A couple of them are examples of what we do. Most importantly, I want you guys leaving here feeling a bit more empowered, and mostly not feeling at all alone in any of the things that we're talking about. So much of what I am talking about is certainly within the context of cancer, but it is also just in the context of life. Right? So hopefully those are my goals. If I don't hit them, tell me and I'll make sure I do by the end. Okay? All right. Okay. So, sex. How would you guys define sexuality? What comes up? Throw out some words. Happy, all right.
Connection.
Yeah.
Connection.
Intimacy, but it's not always that.
Intimacy, but it's not always that, okay. Feels good, okay.
Doesn't always feel good.
Doesn't always feel good, word. Isn't always good.
Life force.
Life force, thank you.
Life force.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can
Life
be
force.
selfish.
Hey, why not? Let's think about sex. She said sometimes it can be selfish. And I say self-love is the best love, right? Okay. So when we think about sexuality, life force is a great way to think about it. When we think about sex and put it in the realm of sexuality, it isn't just intercourse. It isn't just the physical. Sexuality is how we express ourselves, how we communicate, how we look at people, how we use our voice, how we dress, everything about us, our relationships, because it comes down to connection, right? Inherent in us being human, the number one thing we need is connection. And that connection starts with ourselves. So a lot of what we're talking about, whenever we think about sex, we often think, oh, someone else. And the one thing I want you to think about today is not to think of it as selfish, but to remember that our sexuality is ours. We get to own it, we get to identify it, and absolutely when someone else is there with it, awesome, they can join the party, but they are just the kindling. Our sexuality and that ride of how we express it and how we enjoy our sexuality is very much our own. Okay? And I want you to think about that while I'm talking. So it comes out in so many different ways, and that's the beautiful thing. Sexuality is, I don't know how to word this thing. is not just sex. The one thing to keep in mind is how individually unique it is. And when we think about sexuality, it absolutely has to do with how you were raised, where you were raised, and what kinds of cultures, what kinds of conversations you were exposed to from very early age. Were you exposed to holding hands? I definitely have some friends who their parents never hugged them. They don't say I love you. You know, it's very different. Everyone is very different. And keeping in mind, so then when we think about sexuality, some of the things such as your self-image, how you see your body, and particularly in the context of cancer, how that evolves. And that's the beauty of when we think about our sexuality is it evolves constantly. And rather than, we're just raised in a culture where it's like, ooh, aging and health and all of these things, oh, it's bad. Whereas I say it is, man, different. There's more to explore. You know? And our personality, our body image, how we actually perceive ourselves very much influences how we're ever going to externalize that. You know? Again, how we hold ourselves up, how we're breathing, connecting with our bodies. And I'm going to do a lot of exercises around that. So keeping in mind, when we're talking about sexuality and all of the things we're going to talk about, I'll talk about some physical symptoms, but it really is much more multidimensional. Like, it's a whole spectrum. And it absolutely is our life force. It is where we came from and what guides us throughout. You know, if you believe, not even if you believe, so much of our energy and our core starts off with our sexual organs. You know, the health benefits of sex are pretty clear. We know that, particularly in health, it improves immunity, it improves cardiac function. And again, this is generally sexual activity even. We're not even going to the levels of how our sexuality influences our moment-to-moment decisions. Our moments of how we treat our body, how we connect with ourselves, how we prioritize ourselves and make choices from there. That's the idea. All of that stems from our sexuality. But, unfortunately, in times of crisis or stress, it's generally the first thing to go. So, amongst cancer survivors, sexuality, the estimates suggest that anywhere between 40 and 100% of cancer survivors are going to experience some type of sexual change. And unfortunately, with a lot of the below adult cancers, we're talking prostate, testicular, gynecological cancers. Those rates are pretty much 90 to 100%. And that is the reality, and it's generally not talked about at all. You get all these things right when you're diagnosed of, okay, this is what we're going to do, but not so much about what life was going to be like after, right? And again, we'll talk more about some of those specific changes that absolutely affect you day to day. Keeping in mind, you know, all these different adjectives of sex and how it sometimes can be painful, good, fun, quick, convenient, you know, all of these different things. Sex is complex, which is one of the funniest things. Why the heck has sex and relationships become so hard? You know, when it seems like it's innate for us, you know? But the reality is it is. Because as we evolve, as we grow up, damn, this gets in the way, right? Experience gets in the way. Other relationships become part of our sexuality. And that road isn't just a clean road anymore. So a good example of this is amongst women. I'll talk about vaginal dryness. And oftentimes amongst women who experience vaginal dryness, any type of insertion, intercourse or manual insertion, can be very, very painful. And what what happens to our bodies when we experience pain and we're touched? What do?
Retract.
Yes! Oh gosh. So, let's have a visual of what happens inside, right? Oh gosh. And then something's trying to come in. Oh, hell no. That is not happening, right? I don't think so. Not gonna happen. And then what does our mind think? Because one thing to remember, anytime you guys are feeling like, damn, why do I keep doing these things? You know, I'm a psychologist, so obviously like I help people change, right? And the one thing that you always have to remember is that your body, first and foremost, is trying to protect you. Every single thing that you do, every choice that you make is to adapt and protect. So our body goes like this. It tenses up. And unfortunately, man, that's gone. But then behaviorally, what happens when our body tenses up and we try to have any type of stimulation and it hurts? What's happening after that? Shut down, close for business, X-nay on that X-ray, right? Avoidance. Avoidance is the number one coping strategy when anything gets too hard, right? Fight, flee, fight, flight, or freeze, right? But generally, particularly when it comes to sexuality, we're like, no, not in the mood, gotta do my hair, you know? And unfortunately, what does our brain start to think? It starts to think, this is all that's gonna keep me safe. And particularly in the context of cancer, your body's already like, what the hell is going on right here? I'm at war. So if this is gonna keep me safe, I'm over here. I'm over here, get me away from that, okay? And that's what's important to remember. Your body is trying to protect you, okay? So we gotta make sure it feels safe, and there's strategies to do that, right? And this is across all, again, you'll hear a lot of nuggets, and I'm sure you guys think of them, throw them out, because so much of sex becomes a metaphor for so many things in our lives, right? And my whole approach is it's a very efficient target. Sex is the first thing that generally goes out the door. First thing that we forget about. And again, our sexuality. We forget about ourselves. We go through cancer treatment, right? To live. But then it's like, well, shit, how are we living? Right? Right? Like, so, it's complex. I wish it wasn't. I wish all the time that it was gonna always just work and you're like, woo, orgasms. I'm walking around with a smile. I have energy, but like, if I'm having orgasms constantly, different, very different. I'm a very happy person, and we know that, right? Like,
I miss that person.
thank you, right? And that's the beauty, is that could be the day-to-day. Because again, our sexuality is not just the orgasm either. That feels great. And don't get it twisted, we can live in orgasm. You know? And let's just, it's hard. I'm not going to say. So much of what we're talking about is, again, thinking about, okay, you can. Okay. All right. So, and then the thing is that once that happens, then this is where you see, oh gosh, anxiety, depression, PTSD, and all these fun, awesome ways our body is trying to protect ourselves. Oh gosh, and that just makes it even harder, right? So the reality is when it comes to side effects after cancer treatment, the sexual ones tend to linger the most, you know? Pain, fatigue, and sexual concerns. Particularly if those sexual concerns, particularly when we're talking about function. If functionality doesn't come back in those first year, 6 months, year after treatment, generally, again, your body's like, cool, this is what I'm used to. The number of patients I've had who've been like, oh, it's been 12 years, what are you talking about? I'm like, and they think that's okay. And that's okay, I'm not judging, that's totally their choice, but I'm like, what if it didn't have to be that way? like I've heard partners say, I'm just so happy she's here. And so it's okay if our life has been different. It's okay if she needs to sleep in the other room downstairs. The one thing is that, yeah, anything's okay. Anything is okay. And again, this is not, everyone is so different. Don't get it twisted. I'm very a big believer of like lots of space in between partners sometimes, there can be some help in that, right? But the reality is in us being human, think about babies, about that body-to-body touch, and just touch in general. How healing that is. I mean, who doesn't like massages? I mean, I know some people who don't, and I just think they're weird. So unfortunately, these changes can, again, keeping in mind how complex, how holistic it is. Your lens, your expectations of life totally changes. So then life just happens. Years go by. Maybe not so many doctor's appointments, thank goodness. But life goes on, except, son of a gun. But there is absolutely hope. Because the reality is that we know that there's so many things that we can do. There's so many treatments, the majority of which you do not need a script for. Okay? And that's a lot what I'm going to talk about today. Because again, our sexuality is ourselves. It is who we are. It is what we can control. Okay? So there is hope. And we know that we can improve sexual functioning. I really want to give a nod to partners. Because a lot of my work has been so focused. A lot of my clinical work has always been a lot of inpatient stuff. And the thing is, and particularly you go to chemo infusion rooms and gosh, cancer centers are like Disneyland sometimes for me, the nurses are so damn nice. They're bringing you blankets, hot tea. I feel like they'll give you a foot rub if you want them to, The patients get all of this support when they're in treatment. And unfortunately, partners, particularly the men, and if they're nice, supportive partners, they kind of get the shaft. Because everyone's asking, what does everyone ask a person who's in cancer treatment?
How are you?
Okay.
How are you? Are you okay? So much that it's actually quite honestly annoying. How about you just say, hey, did you watch the news and see what our president, not politics, but did you see that? Right? You almost wish that there was something else to ask. How often do you think partners get asked that? They don't. They will be in those meetings with the doctors, with the nurses, everybody. And they're not like, oh, how are you doing? Do you want a blanket? They're like, the partner's shaking over there, I'm good. I haven't eaten in 2 days, but it's all good. So the reality is that partners have been shown to have as much, if not more, distress than cancer patients, particularly afterwards. Why do you think that is? What are some things that happen with partners, other than not getting the support? Fear. Partners have to watch everything happen. And the only thing they can do about it is be ridiculously supportive and hold their shit together. Right?
That's not the only.
What else? Pardon?
It's not the only thing they can do.
Exactly. What else do they have to do?
Well, they're resentful.
They may get resentful. They absolutely, because their needs, maybe they don't feel like they can actually assert them, or maybe they're not getting as much attention. They're not getting all this help. Their life is hard still, right? And, I'm not sure if any of you guys actually took time off from work, because a lot of cancer survivor patients don't. But some people think, oh, well, you're not even working, right? And that can absolutely be an impression of a partner. But you're not working. I'm working, But the thing is that they are working. Seeing the other side is they are working. They are taking care of things at home. They are taking care of the patients as well. And again, they're often not asked how they're doing, and they're selfish if they actually take time for themselves. So, the one thing that we also see is that partner's sexual function also changes through treatment, amongst women and men. And generally, again, the one thing about a lot of sex research is it focuses a lot on frequency. How much, that's what a lot of this data is based on. But again, so think about those numbers, but then really think, okay, what does that look like on the day-to-day? Maybe they are resentful. Maybe they're not coming up to you and just kind of laughing at your jokes and smiling at you and looking at you with connection. Because when we're resentful, again, what do? Like, we shut down, we withdraw,
Get extra busy.
babe, I gotta deal with all this stuff, right? I haven't got time for that. Somebody's gotta take care of this, right? They may get busy, and again, one of the things that you gotta keep in mind is, man, cancer puts everybody in survival mode. It's not fair, it's not fun, but everybody is affected, And what you typically see is also lots of self-blame, because underlying feelings of partners feeling resentful, again, underlying every negative feeling, what is the noun in front? Is it a noun? Yeah, no, whatever. Underlying every negative feeling, what is that about? Is it about the other person?
About yourself.
Absolutely.
If I wasn't sick, he wouldn't have to be an asshole.
There you go. Yeah. If anything, then this. It always comes back to us, right? And again, in the mains of partners, it's, gosh, again, there's not much they can do. Yes?
So, what's interesting about this, as I listen to this, is not only does the doctor not bring up what's happening in this situation, but the patient's don't bring it up.
Oh, yeah.
When I was in treatment in between 2 surgeries, I asked them point blank, can I have sex? I have 2-week break. And they go, well, not really, because you can't do X, Y, and Z. I said, if I can not do those things, can I have sex? Okay. But the nurse actually took me aside and asked me details. How can you do this and not have, I told them, but the fact is, we don't ask for ourselves as work, right?
Yep.
And they don't volunteer. So I think the disconnect is on the medical side and the patient.
100%.
I think that's there's this
100%.
big gap because no one wants to talk about it.
100%. Absolutely, you gotta be your own advocate, 100%.
So
And that speaks to, again, think holistically. It means everything, right? We gotta advocate for ourselves, it's our bodies. Yes?
Even if the partner wasn't there when this whole thing had happened, and then I met them afterwards and things were great. As soon as I had to have another surgery, they're like, I didn't sign up for this and I'm out of here. So there's no knowing if you're gonna have to have something, it was.
You're right. There's
It
no
just
guarantees,
changes.
period. You're
Mm-hmm.
right. That's the whole idea. Our divorce rate is at least 50% now, kind of on the rise. Or people just aren't getting married. Younger generations just aren't doing that. And this is the thing. That's litigious, fine. There's lots of different aspects and opinions around that. But the reality is there is no guarantee. And so when we get left, the number, I've been at the deathbeds of patients because they didn't want their partners there. They're like, they asked me before, they knew it was happening. And they're like, can you be here? I'm like, so. What else am I doing? I'm just kidding. but the reality is that there isn't any guarantee. And it is heartbreaking when you hear those stories because it's not fair. You're like, jerk. I'll say it for you, asshole. I hear that. And you're right. And there's so much uncertainty. And that's a thing. Cancer is another thing in life, whether it's cancer or something else. You got to get through it. You hope someone else gets through it with you. First and foremost, you got to get through it. Right? 100%. So, again, the one thing that we see, and again, with sexuality, is that these sexual changes often, if the partner is sicker, or they have a recurrence, then that's generally where you're seeing more avoidance, more distancing. Also, when partners fatigue too, if they're feeling overwhelmed or if they're feeling distressed, their own emotionality and energy levels are absolutely going to play a part. And one of the things that I feel like is just not talked about, and I had several patients tell me, gosh, I wish I felt like I could talk to my partner, particularly like my husband, but just to say, I get it. It was hard to watch. I mean, cancer, man, if you go to chemo or you have surgery, your body changes like that. And your partners generally are the ones that see you the most. And like, they have to deal with that too. And again, but there's no communication around it. Like, there's no communication. There's no acknowledgement that that's hard to see. It's hard, it messes with you. You don't want to be a jerk, but then you turn out to be a jerk, or, because then that's where oftentimes partners will overprotect. They'll not want to touch. They'll be like, oh, they'll see that they'll fragilize bodies, And so it messes with everybody. Because again, it wasn't expected, and it's quick. Particularly, like if you get a good cancer center, it's happening fast. You can't even think, So, keep in mind our partners. So now let's start talking about some of the physical changes that happen. We'll start with women because I'm a woman. The first and foremost is that one of the most common symptoms with women, and the reality is that whether you have cancer or not, this is just going to happen. Unfortunately, that's just the reality. Thank you. Vaginal dryness or tightness. So particularly if you're experiencing chemotherapy, that are changes, and particularly the dramatic changes in hormones, or even after if you're postmenopausal. Those changes in your hormones are going to affect the pH levels in your vagina. So our vagina, we're just discovering it now still, right? Like the clitoris was only really put in anatomy books in like 2008. Like, just so you know, it's a wishbone, it's not just a little man in the canoe, okay? Like, it's actually bigger than the penis. Like, nobody really talks about that. Hopefully your gynae surgeon knows, but you know what, actually a lot of them didn't, unfortunately. So, what happens when we have vaginal dryness? Basically, our vagina gets shorter, narrower, tighter, and drier. I have had clients tell me that they can't walk. It's that freaking painful. Think about the chafing. Like, I don't know if you guys get those thigh things. Okay, let's just think about our vaginas doing that. Like, there's nothing fun about that. That is so uncomfortable. And again, the one thing as women, and don't get it twisted, men, we're getting to you, okay? But
Right.
but it's our womanhood. It's not like we're looking at ourselves with mirror. Who the heck has done that? I've done it maybe once in my life. Like, it's not like we're that intimate with it, but it is so immediate. But that threat to it. But to feel discomfort there, like another thing is, what do you do about it? Like, no one talks about that. Oh, you're out at brunch. Yeah, my vagina's so dry. Like, okay, to be fair, I do talk to my friends about sex and stuff like that all the time, but I'm real. So we're going to spend a lot of time on this because this is one of the most prevalent side effects of cancer treatment across the board. Pretty much anybody who is on any type of aromatase inhibitor after cancer, if they're breast cancer patients, if they've had any gynae cancer, if they've had any chemo, is going to experience this, okay? And again, even if you haven't, if you're a woman, you're the only women have vaginas, menopause is not fun. It happens. And then menopause, once you enter that club, just like cancer, right? Welcome party, it never ends, right? So, All right, so along those lines, hot flashes and early menopause, surprise, you know, those things too, absolutely come at the worst times. Never know when it's gonna happen. But there are people like with carrying fans around all the time, you know, and again, thinking even of logistics. I have patients who literally have like 4 fans, a ceiling fan, one on their desk table, one standing up at this side, one over there, and their partner's under 10 blankets. You know, they're like, love you, hun, but I mean, 10 blankets, nothing's happening in there, you know? Again, high five for hanging in the bedroom, but like, man, that's awful, you know? And that's the reality. That's the reality that we keep forgetting about, is that is actually what happens, right? Like, it's crazy. And then, of course, surgical removal. Man, you know, it's as if, because particularly there's been all this branding on cancer. Like, oh, it's all okay, you're surviving. Nobody wants to have anything removed, even if you can't see what it is. Right? No. I like the dentist, but I'm weird. But I don't know, the amount of just immediate loss that happens for yourself. And again, thinking about partners, that fragile, they don't want to go anywhere near anything. They don't want to touch it. What if they hurt you? You just had this. You just spend at least a night in the hospital. And if it is internal, they don't know. Men definitely generally don't know what's going on there. Let's just keep it real. They're like, oh, you know? So sorry. So again, this affects our sexuality because the first thing to go and just give me a high five or a woo woo if your libido left the party. Yeah, woohoo, woohoo. Right? It's just I can't even think about it. Please, you know? So decreased desire and motivation really, you're like, oh my gosh, the headache excuse is nothing now. You know, now it's oh, screw you. You can play the C card now as much as you want. And then of course, pain during penetration. And this is the sad thing. So I do a lot of global health work, in Asia and stuff. And again, I remember, in developing countries, cancer is normally diagnosed at stage 3, stage 4. The number of women who would come up to me in Vietnam and say, can I tell my husband I can't have sex? And I was like, first off, you get to say yes or no, period. But the number of women who won't even tell their partners that they are experiencing pain and still do it because they feel guilty because they already have cancer. It's okay, I at least have to throw this bone in, you know? So it works both ways, right? And then, unfortunately, as if orgasms weren't hard enough for most women, they either leave or they're boop, you know, they just crap. So that's just a lot of the reality for women, unfortunately. Men, now here you go, okay? The number one problem that men will experience, and there's just so many jokes about it, but it will happen to everyone. I don't care what men say, it will happen at some point or another. That there will be a problem having and maintaining an erection. I had a 17-year-old call me once who was oh, I have ED. And I'm like, you have an experience. And anxiety. But the reality is that unfortunately, the number of urologists who don't tell their patients that they're going to experience something after prostate or testicular cancer, men, there's most urologists are men. I will ask them, I'm like, dude, what are you thinking? This is major. They don't want to talk about it. You know, but it's incredibly prevalent. Again, not even just thinking about the physical, but we will talk about the emotional. And the reality is that the other problem is that erections for men and for women are a means of communicating. It's a means of your body saying, oh, okay, I'm ready, I'm aroused, I'm ready to go. And your partner thinking, oh, he's ready, or she's ready, or he whatever, anyways, he's ready, I'm ready to go. And where does that go? So, one thing to keep in mind, there is discordance. You may want it, but your body may not, and vice versa. So, people may think that, oh, just because you're aroused, you're in the mood. We have physical discordance sometimes, and that's absolutely the case. In the context of cancer, it generally is because physical and emotional distractions get in the way, or impediments. Okay? The other thing is that women may think that this is a good thing when it takes a long time for a man to climax. It's incredibly frustrating, and then women are like, I can't walk, you know? Or men. Like, and that reality, again, keeping in mind your average cancer patient, if they were in a long-term relationship with one partner, that shit's kind of routine. And for it actually to go longer, and particularly as you're aging, you're kind of like, oh my goodness, you know? Like, but then it also, you don't get that release. You want that release, and then your partner is like, wait, this worked for 20 years, you know? And then what's wrong with me, right? And then this is a freak show that no one talks about, is the dry ejaculate. Which, women, do you know what that means?
No.
Okay, so some do, some don't. It basically means they'll have an orgasm, but nothing will come out. Yeah, no semen comes out. Like, I mean, their first one, if it was a wet dream, they're like, whoa, did I just pee on myself? You know, like, but again, it becomes something that is feedback. It's like, oh, cool, I'm done. I can sleep. You know, like that feedback for a man and for a woman, and for that not to happen, you know, it's pretty major. And again, I've not met one cancer survivor who was ever told about this symptom. Ever. And it's quite. The last one, which, you know, it's interesting that it doesn't come up as much with women, because it absolutely is the case, but it definitely comes up with men, is incontinence. And yes, with aging, incontinence is going to happen too, but particularly with the below the belt cancers, it's pretty frequent. And the reality of that is that if you're constantly worried that this is going to happen, again, your body goes into protection mode. This is often where you will see partners saying, oh, I don't want to wake you up all the time. I don't want to wake you up all the time. So let me go sleep in the other room. Or when I wake up, I'll just sleep on the couch. You know? Because it can be incredibly, incredibly terrifying. You know? And definitely with the dry ejaculate, I've had also some men think when they had it and they finally acclimated to that, and then they were also, then they started experiencing incontinence, they were like, ooh, maybe it's bad. No, it's not. It's not that juice. So again, the sexual implications are, just shut me off if I'm getting too gross. Avoidance of sexual activity and decreased libido. Yes, men can experience decreased libido, and it actually is quite prevalent. Okay. All right. So those are a lot of the changes. Now, unfortunately, again, we are emotional beings, and none of this happens in a vacuum. When we think about our physical sexual functioning, absolutely, again, that is a means of communicating. That is a means of interacting. But absolutely our emotional well-being influences. Stress is the number one thing. Again, thinking of how we tense up when we're stressed. Thinking of how our minds worry. If you are thinking about, oh, I have a scan, that's all your mind is thinking about. That train left the station. It's gonna ruminate. Okay, well, yeah, you're touching my breast, but I'm not there. That is not in the game. You know, that's the reality. Like, you're not there. Absolutely changes to body image. Again, how you see yourself. 100% is going to be different in how you relate to someone else. How comfortable you feel to connect to them. You know, that's just the reality. And then the number one survivorship concern. But certainly upon diagnosis is fear and uncertainty. Cancer reminds us that there are some things we cannot control. It reminds us of our mortality. And that in and of itself never leaves. But it has to be managed. It can be managed. But that reality absolutely enters the bedroom, enters when you're putting your clothes on, enters how you talk to people. It comes in because it's there now. So, and then of course the doozies of anxiety and depression. All of those have sexual implications because the reality is that these emotional changes are also affecting your hormonal changes as well. All of the neurotransmitters that affect our mood affect our hormones too. Everything's connected. Everything is connected. Okay? Again, you're gonna have decreased libido and you're gonna be distracted during sex. You know, if you are actually doing it and you're like prepping yourself up for any kind of intimacy, man, again, you may not be there. You know, and you want to be there. And then you have patients who are like, no, stop. Like, no, you, not you. You go. This needs to stop, right? And again, number one is just the avoidance, the distancing. Okay? All right, so I'm just going to go through this quickly. Basically, this is looking at our sexual response and the number of things that come up across the whole spectrum, from desire, fatigue, body image, on our excitement, our arousal, how our mood and our hormonal balances, neuropathy, vaginal changes. Plateau is the ride. That's when you're just going at it. And then the orgasm, really, again, that's where we talked about. And then, unfortunately, this is the doozy. It's when people are experiencing bleeding or pain afterwards. That sucks. It's just not fair. It's not fair. And when sex really just isn't no longer fun. You know? All right. So, the good news is that there are treatments and strategies to improve this, to address and manage. Again, keeping in mind, when we're thinking about our sexuality, it will evolve. It will evolve. Within the cancer context, it may evolve more dramatically. Okay? But it's always going to evolve. So, a lot of the work in this area really comes, particularly in my area, is focused on communication. The reality is, and you spoke to it a bit earlier, is that there just isn't much talk about it. So when we think about strategies of working with clients, patients, and their partners, at the core of it is really focusing on that communication. Okay? And when you can, treating the underlying cause. Again, physical, psychological, social, that lack of community, that lack of connection. Minimizing any of the anatomical changes, using lubricants, and I'll get to all of this. And then, again, this is really where I'm also going to talk about later, so I'm not sure how I'm doing my time. Okay, I'm moving. Okay, so providing information on alternatives. Again, thinking about sex is not just intercourse. God, foreplay is amazing. Just as holding hands, just as cuddling and watching movies together, right? Even just laying on somebody laying on you sometimes feels really good, right? Okay, and then as needed, the reality is that most people don't need to see, most people definitely don't need to see a neurologist, like me, please, but, or your OB-GYN, most of them don't. You know, just like most people don't need to see a psychologist, most of the things that we can do, we can actually do on our own. Okay, and that's what we're going to get to. So, let's get to it. So, when we're talking about vaginal dryness, and in turn, pain, I'm going to present to you a bunch of strategies, products, things that you can do on your own. You don't need a script for, okay? In the area of vaginal dryness, over the last decade, there have been lots of like laser treatments, different hormonal creams and pills. Many of them are FDA approved. In the context of cancer, a lot of them haven't been checked. And flat out, again, I guess in a lot of my presentations, I really focus on what can you start, because the majority of people aren't doing anything, okay? So I would rather you start what's accessible before you go down those options, okay? So one option for vaginal dryness is vaginal moisturizers. And the difference is vaginal moisturizers here are creams or lotions that you put on every day. And what they're trying to do is stabilize the pH balance in your vagina again, okay? One of the most common one is Replens. But one of the things is that this is, you use often. So again, postmenopausal, you're gonna wanna use this regularly, okay? Because your body just, again, and I just think of it as lotion. Like, okay, it's not the same anymore. And again, if you shift your mindset around it, number one reason, I mean, who likes to do anything every day, right? Like particularly there. So, but really what it's trying to do is heighten the pH balance down there in your vagina so that then it's not as dry. Okay? Lubricants. Lubricants are more on the spot, what you're going to use, okay? They can be different liquids, they can be water-based, silicone-based, oil-based. What they never should be, in my opinion, and I've had so many patients tell me their doctor tells them, is Aquaphor. Petroleum jelly. And don't get twisted, I use that all over my body, but I definitely don't use it down there. And maybe I shouldn't use it, but I gotta say, I have eczema. It's really good for that. But it's not that. And I just added this because the number of patients who generally a GP has told them to use that, I'm like, that shit is gooey. Like, oh, do not do that. I'm like, get yourself online. There's so many things out there because I also don't really recommend KY. CVS has it and has had it for decades, but it's sticky. And again, like, ladies, there's so many products out there. There's so many. And it's your prize. This is your prize. Spend the extra $5. Because that's the difference, generally. It's literally $5. Amazon ships everything to your door. The one I recommend to most people is Pseudo because it's water-based. It's a little goes a long way. And again, pretty much order any of these things online. So I encourage, again, as we evolve, explore. There's some that even have flavors. All right. Okay. The other thing that when, again, our vaginas are tightening, they're shrinking, and that elasticity isn't there. So, particularly if there's been radiation, one of the things that every woman who experiences any type of dryness should have been told about is vaginal dilators. And they're basically like those Russian dolls and it kind of looks like a vibrator or a dildo, and it has a handle. And it starts off, I literally have women who could never even imagine putting a tampon in there, let alone their finger. It hurts, it's that tight. So the first one starts off at about this. And basically, you just insert slow. I mean, it's like start knocking on the door, even just knocking on the door, so that you begin to gradually desensitize that area and again, train. Our sexuality and the sexual muscles, it's a gym. They need to be gradual, and then it's going in, using lots of lube inside and on the outside, and then if you need to start where it's just the tip, absolutely okay. Okay? And then gradually, and this is the beauty of this is, again, this is your ride. Do it when you feel comfortable, when you have privacy. Play your best music, your sexiest music, or just your funnest, like Cyndi Lauper or whatever, But take your time. This is not a sprint, okay? And then work your way up. I mean, maybe work your way up to that. As needed. Okay. Okay. All right. The other thing, and again, this goes for men too, and I have a slide for that, is Kegels. Again, so who here knows what Kegels are, or pelvic floor exercises? Okay, so there's a few who maybe haven't heard of it. So I'm doing some right now. Basically, and you can't tell, right? I know. That's That's the beauty. You can do them anytime. You can be at work. You can be like talking to your mom. You know, like you can do anything, anytime. But basically what these are going to do is it's going to strengthen your pelvic floor to better support your vaginal area. It also is going to help with pain, incontinence, and the number one thing it's going to help is you reconnecting with your gynae area. That's the thing. That's the ticket. It's you reconnecting with your body and feeling those sensations. And for the men, giving you a little high five in there too. Okay? So it really helps on both sides. Okay? All right, some other things that I want, and again, now this applies for men and for women. First and foremost, plan sex. Like, the reality is everyone's like, oh, it's just not so spontaneous. Let's just keep it real. Life is busy. It was busy before cancer anyways. This whole idea of like, oh, planning sex is unromantic, come on. You know, the reality is we're having less sex, particularly younger ages. And you know what? At least do yourself a solid and like at least plan it when you're not tired or you just took your pain meds. You know? Like, focus on your physical sensation. And this is really where I want to take you guys. Who here has heard of mindfulness? Yay. Who here practices it? Yay. Okay. All right. So I just want everybody to put your cups down, your thermos, and let's just close your eyes. All right. Okay. Just want you to take an inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Start noticing and feel free to yell out. What things are you hearing in the room? What noises are you hearing?
The hum. Yeah, the hum.
A hum. Okay, what else? Okay. All right. Okay. What's the room feel like right now? What's the air around your body feel like on your skin?
Cool.
It's cold. All right. Now, start noticing your body. How's your neck feeling? Feeling tense? Tense. Okay. All right. Start rolling your shoulders. Are they feeling tight? Is one a little bit tighter than the other? And then now move down your body, move down your arms. Start noticing, are your muscles feeling heavy? You've been sitting in these chairs a while. How's your bum feeling? Is it feeling seated down? Okay. And notice if you are holding your hands or wherever your hand is touching, what does it feel like, whatever you're touching? Is it soft? Is it rough? What does it feel like? Take an inhale and exhale. One more inhale and exhale. Gently open your eyes. You're smiling. How did that feel?
Relaxing.
Relaxed. Do you guys notice what this as a community feels like? That's our nervous systems chilled out. That's us taking a break. Because what were your thoughts doing while I was talking?
Focusing.
Yeah. If they're focusing, what were they focusing on?
Whatever you were talking about.
And what does that mean they weren't doing?
Going crazy with other thoughts. Distractions.
Exactly. Then it wasn't worrying. It wasn't, oh, dude, who's just leaving it? Stop, I gotta go. You know? It wasn't doing that. Right? And the reason I began to just get you to start thinking about what's around you. What is your body doing in this space? What is it connecting to? Okay. There's so many different things about mindfulness. There's so many different ways to approach it. The way I generally teach it is do it while you're doing stuff. You do not need another thing on your to-do list. Walk around mindful. Notice, oh God, damn, my back hurts. What happens when I stand more straight up? Always on the exhale is where you're releasing, where you're giving your body, getting all those toxins out. Start focusing on your sensations, little bit by little bit, doing body scans. There's lots of good headspace, calm, there's lots of good apps out there. But again, mindfulness is being present. We spend 70 to 80% of our time either in the past regretting it or in the future worrying about it. We are rarely here. Again, keeping in mind, everything that is distressing, our body perceives as fear or experiences it as fear and wants to protect us. If you know exactly what you're doing right in the moment, and you literally are not in physical threat, there isn't a woolly mammoth or you're not getting abused, you know that right now is safe. And that's the beauty of mindfulness. And then it's connecting to your body. That's where the sensations come in. So that you then all connect, okay? All right, and then again, it's palpable. It's palatable, right? You're like, okay. All right, playful touch. Man, again, not everything going straight to the intercourse. Playing with your hair. Who doesn't like that? Okay, again, if people don't like their hair played with, it's weird. You know, like I got a lot to play with, and just doing anything little, playing footsie. I'm not a foot person, but whatever your fancy is, okay? Whatever it is, exploring, having fun again. And again, with yourself. Like, give yourself spider. Like, give yourselves the egg crack. You know, do those things. That's fun, man. We forget about the stuff we used to do as kids. We liked them and they always worked. You know, like when you hold someone's hand and then you get all the blood out and then you open and then you pull the string. Who doesn't love that? Like, and then non-coital sexual activities. Again, it's not all about getting it in the basket. Like, that's not always the goal or the whole, whatever. Does not have to enter orifices. And then this is one of the most effective strategies in sex therapy when there has been sexual dysfunctions or particularly avoidance of sex, erectile dysfunction, pain, is really sensate focus, which is basically a behavioral strategy where there's 3 phases, where you begin to focus on one person guiding the other partner, of just saying, I touch me here, touch me there, guiding their hand, and telling them how it feels. Then the next phase is actually getting them to just try to touch you on their own. And again, without your guidance, but then you focusing on expressing how that feels and what feels, how, like more giving them feedback. And then gradually it can be a little bit more interplay, but the whole time, get this, nothing down there. No intercourse, okay? Because it's about taking the pressure off of that, focusing back on the connection and sensations. This is one of the most effective sex therapy strategies, okay? All right. So, and then my favorite, is sex position. So this was in my study of all these different ones I came up with, all these fun names. Like, that's the thing. Most people do just kind of get into your routine. You know what works really fast and just get there, done. Let's watch Seinfeld. Right? Like, and that's all good, but then our bodies are constantly changing and our vaginas, there are lots of different spots. There's like a cavern. It's a cave to be explored, like Goonies, right? All right, so exploring different positions and flat out, particularly when it comes to if you've had any surgical removal or if you're experiencing pain, using pillows. One, there's awesome pillows out there, or just get them all in. I don't care if you're using couches or whatnot. Set yourself up for comfort. Women and men. Take the extra 5 minutes to pillow up, okay? So that it's comfortable. All right. Okay, now for men, all right. The number one thing that people are gonna get is either Viagra or Cialis. Unfortunately, oftentimes that isn't always that effective. Mostly because if there has been any type of nerve damage, that's problematic. But then keep in mind, where Viagra and Cialis do not work is when your head is involved. And not just that head, this head, right? Like, the reality is that oftentimes it's already hard enough for men to try those medications. So then they try it once or twice, and they're like, this isn't gonna work. And they feel hopeless, defeated, and then they just stop altogether, okay? And that is common. It is common. So one thing I tell is, don't throw the baby out with the basket. Maybe you'll be there, can always confirm that there isn't any nerve damage, okay? But don't throw that out just yet. But then begin to start using things like penile pumps. Penile pumps are for rehab. And women, listen up for your partners too. That's one thing to important. I think porn really made this idea that, people do use penile pumps because, it's just going to give them this huge, elephant thing. No, it actually, what it's trying to do is help it out, but, it's actually rehabilitative, okay? It's getting the blood drawn. So it has to be done regularly, okay? And every penile pump comes with these handy-dandy cock rings. So, you add those, okay, afterwards, and then they come in different sizes, okay? Because again, it's rehab, just like anything else, just like when you're lifting weights, you gradually change the weight, okay? Again, it's sex gym, all right? So you're gonna gradually do this, okay? And then do not get scared, but the most effective is penile injections, okay? But it is now, and they have it now where it's kind of like a diabetes shot, but you just don't go for a main vein because it's not going to hurt you, but it's going to give a bruise. But that literally will last for generally 30 to 45 minutes. It generally activates within 10 minutes, and it's one of the most effective. Okay. There's penile implants, things like that, but those are the general strategies, okay? One of the things I haven't talked about, which thank you for reminding me at the beginning, is certainly self-pleasure, okay? When we think about even penile pumps, even working with masturbation, and again, using rings, okay, gradually. Again, and using lube. One of the things that unfortunately men kind of skimp on is lube. Women, if you're at all aware, you're like, it's not happening without it. I want to actually make a product where it's attached to, on bungees on the sides of the beds. Because you never can find it when you need it, right? And so, but men, absolutely, get some good lube, because the number one thing is we forget we're already so ashamed or not disconnected with our bodies that we may not be playing as much with ourselves. God, we're but that's the best party, And how are we supposed to tell our partners what to do if we don't even know? Unfortunately, ladies, that's the truth. They're not going to know unless we do. Okay? All right. Okay. All right. So those are some of the treatments. And again, men, absolutely. Kegel exercises, Kegel away. They are not just for women. They are not just after labor. They are for men. It helps. Again, all you're doing is you're strengthening your core muscles. So it's going to help with your erections. It's going to help with incontinence. And don't get it twisted. You guys can say hello inside there too. Okay? All right. So, this is the reality though. We know that these things work, but there's a big gap between who needs the support and who actually gets it. That's the reality, right? And one of the number one reasons is because patients don't bring it up and doctors don't bring it up, okay? That's just the reality. Doctors aren't bringing it up because they're crap doctors. They're bringing it up because now healthcare and the speed that you gotta get in and out is just next level, okay? But then on top of it, they barely wanna ask you how you're feeling. Because they don't want somebody, they're already crying, you know? And again, oncologists are generally a special breed, but not all of them. Let's just keep it real, okay? So so let alone ask about sex when, again, most of them, I have given grand rounds to OB-GYNs and they were never trained in dealing with sexual dysfunction. I know, right? You're like, really? Yes, really. Like, it's sad, it's crazy, it's wicked. So, they don't refer out. I'm all big believer. Don't do what you don't feel comfortable with. That's why they have me. You know, I love this shit. So there's also embarrassment. Okay, it's not even just that you're gonna cry. It's like, I don't want to talk to you about your vagina, even though I just did surgery on it. Even though you were knocked out and I was all in your grill. Like, God forbid, right? Like, God forbid, I'm actually not gonna now talk to you when you're awake. Okay. And then flat out, most treatments focus just on the patients, and we don't bring the partners in, you know? So, and again, that's unfortunate. So those are the big gaps. So, a lot of my research, again, I'm not super theoretical. I'm very practical, and I just like, okay, somebody else, like, I'm like the most, like, unintellectual academic, you know, which is why now I'm in private practice. Because I'm like, I don't like thinking about those theoretical things. I care about, I'm like, somebody else who really wants to do bench work, things like that, they're gonna do it, and then I'm gonna make sure people use it. That we know actually, like, to bridge that gap. That's been all of my work. So, I started off really just figuring out, what do people know? So where have you guys, just announced, don't worry about, like, I don't care where you've done it, where have you guys sought information about sexual concerns? If you have it all, only if you have. Yes.
Friends online, I've always been.
Online, friends,
been
online,
aware.
just shout out things. Where have you found it?
The breast cancer support group here?
Nice, support groups, word, props, okay? That's it? Anybody here get it from their doctors? A little, okay, good. All right, so I asked about 323 breast cancer survivors, where are you getting this support? And most of them said a book, the internet, or a third of them, it was mostly thirds. Some of them actually asked their partners for some tips, advice. Only about 20% asked their oncologist. And again, I gotta say that these are breast cancer women who volunteer to always be in research. So let's just keep that in mind, okay? So this is next, and we asked those, okay, the ones of you who actually are doing things, which was only about, that prior one was about only 109 were actually seeing that out. What were they currently doing? Again, lubricants are the number one thing that women are going to use, okay? So, and that's okay. It's the easiest thing to do. And it is very much on the spot. So again, the only thing I'll encourage you to do is get some good ones. And then some will use vibrators, topical creams. But again, the reality is that only 4.6 used a dilator. Yes, you did. Very neat. Props. Thanks for sharing. Awesome.
And I will say it's very helpful.
Yes, right?
Good.
Yes.
Where do you get it?
Yeah, where?
Online.
Online. Literally, the number one thing is
Oh,
make
that's
sure
okay.
that you have a handle. Yes?
Yeah, the loop
Oh,
or handle it.
Make sure that you get one that has a handle attached, like that you actually clip on to each of the things. Okay?
I took my husband to the pleasure chest and said, let's go.
Pleasure chest is
I
the best.
wonder
I'm gonna actually do some seminars there. Yes.
And
Yeah.
showed him what it was, and this is what we're gonna work on.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing with vaginal dilators. Hey, if you want this to be a party, go for it. You know? Yes.
Touch of Romance in Culver City. Great store, great stuff.
Tantric romance.
Touch of Romance.
Touch of romance.
And there's a new place right on Wilshire.
See?
Brand new, just opened, called Cupid's Closet.
Cupid's-
Do they have the dilators?
Cupid's
They
Closet.
have dildos, but.
I mean,
I don't know,
realistically,
but
again, if you haven't been to some fun sex
The Touch of
stores,
Romance
there's
is great.
so
Yeah,
much
right
out
across from Fox
there.
Hills.
Like, there's so much out there. And again,
Most of those places carry them.
but almost all of this stuff is online.
But I see women in my PT office.
Yes.
Well,
See?
it's physical therapy.
Well, no, I mean, the reality is that oftentimes it's physical therapists who are teaching pelvic floor muscles, right? And again, oftentimes, women are not told. Like, I worked with a gynae cancer group, and every single gynae patient walked out with them when they were discharged from surgery. Like, yep. All right, so we also did some interviews, and one of the things this one guy said was that the oncologist said, well, is your sex life okay? Do you have sexual function? And that was it. Like, do you have sexual function? That's like, do you breathe? Like, what the hell kind of question is that? Like, it's a yes, no. Like, okay, so that's just the reality, really importance of communication. And I mean, I've trained so many clinicians just to ask one question. They ask one question. How sexually satisfied are you? That's it. Another study that we did found that of all these measures, that one question, opens the door. That one question is very much related to all areas of sexuality. And it's just one question. And it's not specific about function. It's just, how sexually satisfied are you? So next time you see your doctor, ask them, how sexually satisfied are you? All right. So I did this grant when I was at University of Sydney, and we had lots of people from all over the world who were really great. And we basically built a self-led, we translated what we know about cognitive behavioral therapy and sex therapy and made Rekindle. I asked Hugh Grant to be our ambassador, and to be fair, he got back to us, but he wasn't available. So we tailored it for patients and partners, but it was a solo intervention. They didn't have to do it together. And it was for women and men, because again, these are not just for a specific cancer type. This is across the board, these sexual changes. And this was the first study out there, and one of the main ones still, that actually included same-sex attracted individuals, okay? So we had 12 different versions. And basically, the heart and soul of Rekindle was our ambassadors. We had cancer survivors and partners share their stories. We made about 250, 300 videos of everyone sharing their stories, because the one thing why you guys are all here today is the commonality. Once you enter the C Club, things change. And the power of learning from your peers is huge. Again, it's all about connection. It's what we connect with. Yes.
So everyone's talking about how they've rekindled their sex life in these videos?
Well, I will show you. Here's an example. This one's funny. I picked these guys because they're hilarious. And so
See, I'm more particular about the incontinence than the sexual activity. Yeah, so the incontinence is a big thing. Yeah.
But that's improved too.
It has, but it's an ongoing thing in terms of going to the toilet a lot. That's a big thing because my bladder shrunk now. So I might go to the toilet where I used to go maybe twice a day. I might go 6 times a day. So it's not that I'm going into the men's toilet for, hey, let's have a look. It's actually because I've got to empty my bladder. And that's for the audience, that one. All right. Good
He
point.
weed on me once.
Once.
Because when he ejaculates, nothing comes out. But this one time, he urinated on me, which I really didn't like. But, you know,
Well, what happened was the
I got
bladder.
over
There
it.
must have been some urine in the bladder. So through the point of ejaculation, which there's no semi-fluid, but the feeling is exactly the same. Some urine came out,
a lot.
which I thought at that particular moment, oh my gosh, the semen's back. This is fantastic. But no, it's a bit of urine. But the sensation was more fulfilling for sure.
So that was a flavor. I love those guys, and a little background on them is that, so this was filmed, we basically took my apartment and made it a studio. I had a set designer, they painted everything, brought new furniture in, I had a whole camera crew. I fired my producer and basically was like telling where the camera would go. We had script writers, this was a huge production. I mean, this was like a very large federal grant, okay? And, but this group, So I was like, oh man, I need some more same-sex attracted couples. And so I was just at a friend of mine's party, and there one of my friends who's gay. I was just like, hey, if you know anyone. So long story short, 3 days beforehand, this couple shows up at my place, and I welcome them at the elevator. And before we walk in, they go, hey, just so you know, we've never talked about this stuff. Like, and they're like, so, but my friend said we could trust you. And I was like, you're in good hands, man. I was like, enter. And so the one thing is that just like all of you guys showing up, hey, you sharing yours, like, there's power of owning, right? And sharing, and like being able to give voice. And for those that fucking, like, it's hilarious, right? Like,
levity is so important.
I know, right? Like, and they're hilarious. And the fact that that was the first time that they were actually ever talked about it, I would have not known that at all if they didn't tell me that. Okay, so we also had lots of, to be fair, some of the Australia's best oncologists. Fran Boyle is, if you know anybody who has breast cancer, she's amazing. She's amazing. She's amazing. They're very, very well researched, and they're just awesome. And then we had like specialists, physiotherapists, all of different doctors. We hired actors to come in and really talked about different communication styles, and we wrote scripts for that. Then we made all these games like Burst Your Bubbles, and some of these are where you tap on it and it bursts the bubble. And like, I'll never enjoy sex again. You can transmit, so this is all based on research. These are common, what we know are myths. That you can give your partner cancer through sex, okay? Or if I bring up sex, I'll pressure my partner when they're not ready or they're not interested, okay? So we really busted a lot of those myths. And then we really focused on one of the hard things is that I talked earlier about physical discordance, where maybe you're aroused, but your body's not showing up for the party, right? Same thing happens with our moods. Again, everything we do is protective. If your body thinks, oh, I don't want to confront, I don't want to add any more burden or stress, this is how I feel all the time. So, unfortunately, we kind of start losing how we actually express. What are the cues our bodies actually communicate? You know? And so reconnecting with identifying emotions and different ways of expressing feelings. And then I made this decision aid, which really was, this is the beauty. There are so many products out there that, like, the reality is what are your priorities? Do you want something that's easy? Do you want something that's discreet? Do you want something that actually you need to use, like, plan for in advance? There's everything out there. And so what we did was basically make this algorithm so that we actually could give some recommendations of what to do. So Rekindle helped. We had improved sexual satisfaction, improved sexual disclosure and efficacy and confidence in talking about sex, and most importantly, we had decreased unmet needs. So we had some good feedback. I'll move on from that. It was like, I thought, wow, it's actually good. Sounds like sex sometimes. Okay, so one of the most important things that I thought was really interesting was that the people who were in our study, and again, this was across 34 cancer centers, we had all in about 420 people participating in this, and it was how distressed they were. They were incredibly distressed, and particularly anxiety. They were very, very anxious. So oftentimes, the anxiety is what brought them into the intervention. And unfortunately, Rekindle taught some cognitive challenging, but it didn't specifically talk about anxiety. And you see this across the majority of behavioral health interventions. If you're doing weight loss and somebody is depressed or anxious, and you don't address that anxiety or depression, they may initially lose weight. But again, everything we do is protective. How we eat, every choice we make, you are not making the healthiest decisions when you are anxious or when you are depressed, right? So, one of the things we saw was that they were experiencing higher distress, and the people who were too distressed, they actually, because they were looking for support, they did worse because they weren't getting that support. You know, and that was one of the biggest things is that at the core of our sex, it isn't just about sex. That's the beauty. It isn't just about sex. So even though I focus on sex, it's never just about sex, right? It's about what's underlying this. So this one woman was just saying, while some women who had small bit of libido and I have absolutely nothing. So while I recognize it's not the fault of the material, it actually made me feel really depressed. And I just sort of gave up because I felt like I had nothing, like I was kind of beyond help. And this is where we make comparisons, and sometimes we can even come to support groups and then say, oh, particularly if those are upward comparisons and we're the down part, we think, I had no hope, And absolutely, again, this is generalizable across not just sex. And that's what we see. You see this in pretty much every single clinical trial when it comes to psychosocial interventions. All right. So from that, I returned to America and I made the first Latina sex therapy. It's very, very interesting how we have J-Lo, and there's these polarizing perceptions of Latinas that they're either Virgin Marys or they're like, hello, Gucci, right? Yet there's been no sex therapy ever done with Latinas. Shocker, right? There's actually very rarely, most sex therapy was done, think about Kinsey. I went to Indiana University for undergrad. Most studies on sex are with college students. Yeah, a lot of help. Right?
Yeah, they're like rabbits.
Yeah, I wasn't having sex though. And they don't know what they're doing. Let's just keep it real. They're not exploring themselves, So, long story short, I congregated another team and we came up with an app. And we came up with an app this time because we thought we really want to target a very broad reach of individuals. And so particularly if there's any socioeconomic differences, apps are easier to access than a laptop. Okay? So we made Aviva. And it's the first resource to address specifically Latinas, but psychosexual concerns for Latina cancer survivors. So we are working with organizations in California, New York, DC, different universities, and we are actually in the process of recruiting folks. So I will wrap it up. So what are the next steps? Okay, what are the next steps? This isn't in my work, this is in your work. This is in all of ours work. Start the conversation with yourself. Start having these conversations. Start asking yourself these challenging questions so that they're eventually not challenging. So that you can actually talk however the hell you want to talk about your own body to whoever you want to talk to it about. But start with yourself. Start thinking about yourself. Start putting yourself first. Okay? That's why you did this. That's the thing, right? You did this to live, right? So start having the conversation. Keep in mind, this is so real and so, again, gonna happen to every single one of us. Again, in cancer, it's just cool, hello, but it's gonna happen to all of us. All of these changes are gonna happen at some point to all of us. We're not alone. Because we're human. Because we need connection. And that's what you gotta remember. Okay? You are not alone in feeling lonely. You are not alone in feeling scared. You are not alone in feeling unwanted. You are not alone in any of that. None of that are you ever alone. You are not alone in your anger or sadness either. And you also are not alone in having desire. That's great. Okay. And start the conversations. Again, I think it's actually quite funny. I'm happy I came up with that. How sexually satisfied are you? Start asking them about them. All the questions are always about you. Flip the switch. Start talking to your doctors. You're right. They will not ask you, not because they don't want to or don't care, maybe that's true too, but they don't have time because you know what? There's so many mandates, particularly if this is your GP. There are so many mandates of questions they have to ask you because something pops up on their screen. They can't go on without asking you that. Sex is not one of them. I'm working on that. Okay? All right. Talk with your partner. Talk with new partners. It is a good litmus in dating. Like, can this person hang with me? That's the juice, right? You can't hang with the conversation. Man, there's gonna be no sex talk in the bedroom. You know? Like, these conversations are what make those conversations even hotter. So, talk. Talk with your partner. And be patient. Where's the fire? Right? Be patient. Be flexible. Be gentle with your bodies. Again, cancer attacked it. Chemo attacked it. So if everything was just does not have to be like that. You can slow. You can connect. Be gentle with yourselves. Be gentle with your partners. Okay? Be gentle. Be patient. And be exploring. Be curious. And prioritize your health. Again, our sexuality is at our core. It reminds us it is how we live. It is how we move. We are in charge of our lives. We have to show up for ourselves every single moment. We have a choice. We have a choice to live, or we have a choice to not even think about it. Every single moment, we always have a choice. And when you get into the same rut, you want things to be different, make a different choice. I'm a big believer, there's always 3 options. Same, run away, fight, aggress, avoid. There is always a middle ground. There is always a 3rd option. So this is again, what's there to lose? You're already pissed off, or you're already frustrated, you're already having these problems. Well then, how much worse can it get? Right? That's the thing. Because again, our body is protected. This has gotten safe. But you know what safe feels like? It feels uncomfortable. It hurts. Okay. Well, what does something else feel like? That's the attitude. You know what's happening now. You know what this is like. Maybe that will be different. That's it. So, all right. Feel free. Does anybody have any questions? I have business cards over there, and I would love if I make videos and do lots of little writes and stuff. If you'd like to join my email list, Larissa has it. But thank you guys so much. Are there any questions?
Please tell everyone about your website and all the videos you have to offer.
Yes. Okay. So I am. You can find me more about me at www.drcatalinalawsin.com. I have a YouTube channel. I'm building my Instagram, so don't laugh at it when you see it. And I have a Facebook group as well. So feel free to reach out if there's anything I can do or support you. Yes. Thank you guys all for being in there.